Hello and welcome to the weekly commodity market update. I'm Brownfield's Will Robinson, joined as always with the University of Missouri's Ben Brown. Hey, Ben.
Good morning, Will. How are you?
I'm doing well. For real quick for the viewers out there, I'm doing this on a different laptop than normal. So instead of our back and forth, we're actually getting a side to side view, side by side view today. So unfortunately, maybe for the viewers, they have to see my face the whole time instead of just part of the time.
And you're John Perkins.
And I'm John Perkins. I stole the John Perkins's laptop, so shout out to John. Thank you for working right after Christmas and allowing me to also steal and disrupt your day. So, but yeah, Ben, how's your post Christmas going so far?
Yeah, so far so good. My days are out of whack. I have no idea what day it is, but we're managing. It's been good. I think the biggest thing for me over Christmas break is I got the chance to go home. I always love to go home and see my family. I always enjoy going. Like it really is a highlight for me to get to go home. And my dad needed some help feeding calves. My uncle Wayne usually does that, but he was out of town visiting his kids, so I got called up out of the bullpen, if you will. And I think the big thing I realized is I'm out of shape for scooping silage. I'm a little sore. My muscles are a little sore, but it was really refreshing. It's always great to be home. So, and we had just the most beautiful Christmas morning. No wind, clear skies. It was a great day being out feeding calves. So,
Well, it's amazing how 20 degrees feels good after you've been in, negative temperatures for about 3 days in a row.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. And wind. Oh gosh, that wind was brutal. But
yeah, yeah.
we had a
So
beautiful Christmas morning. So, what about yourself? How are you doing?
I'm doing well, doing well. Had a lot of the same experiences. Came home, saw family. Try to keep all the pigs and cattle warm at home, keep their waters thawed, and keep feed to them. So same thing. So,
Now, does your family do any games? Do you play games or anything?
like in what way?
Well, so we played. So this year we had a brutal, I mean, just ruthless battle of Ticket to Ride. I did not win. My brother-in-law won, but it was fun. It was a good time.
It's a little different this year. It's a little quieter, but I mean, we have traditions that we do every year and fun stuff. But I don't know. It's things are constantly changing. So speaking of things that are constantly changing, though, what types of changes are we seeing in the market this morning?
Yeah, so because of the holiday weekend, we're taking these prices as of Tuesday, December 27th in the morning. So keep that in mind. But prices really shot out of the gun to come out of that holiday weekend. Corn, old crop corn for March was up 24 cents to 6.73. New crop corn up 12 cents to 6.06. January soybeans up 38 cents to 15.06. New crop soybean for November up 22 to 14.06. Soybean oil up almost 3 cents per pound to 67.5 cents per pound. Soybean meal up $7.5 per ton to 460 or $460 per short ton. Old crop wheat up 34 cents to 7.81. New crop July wheat up 32 cents to 7.92. And then that West Texas Intermediate crude oil up $4 to just over $80 per barrel on the morning.
Yeah, so a lot of strength coming into the market following the opening of trade today. So obviously something to keep watching for the rest of the day, see what the trend there is. Really, this is going to be a unique show today. We're going to recap some of the big events of the year that really drove the market. Some in a good way, some in a bad way, and some we're still trying to figure out exactly how it's going to shake out. So Ben, starting off, obviously one of the biggest shocks in the market of the year, Russia-Ukraine, Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the conflict that's ongoing there. Something that's still impacting the market, but really, what was the overall level of market tension, market swings that this provided? Well, obviously we saw some huge swings, limit up, limit down, depending on news as we work through the year. So, but what's kind of your synopsis of what went on?
Sure. Yeah, this was one of those black swan events that you just can't really plan for. The risk is always there, some geopolitical tension or an outbreak in a major producing region of the world. But you don't plan for it, right? Because the likelihood of it happening is rather small, and then when does, it's a big shock to the market. And that's certainly what we saw is a major shock to the market. This is the first time in decades we've seen an outbreak in a major producing world or area of the world. As a reminder, Russia and Ukraine both account for about 25% of the world's exports of feed grains. And so just a major shock to the market. We saw troops building up along the border, so the market had been building in a risk premium. But certainly even when the outbreak did happen, it still was a major shock to the market. And we continued to trade headlines through the rest of the year that caused some extreme volatility. I think probably the biggest thing was how countries around the world reacted to the outbreak. Even here in the United States, and we had so many policies that came out that really tried to encourage production. We had that that incentive to double crop behind wheat to help, build up some oil seeds, some vegetable oil relief, maybe. We had all sorts of provisions that were talked about that were trying to increase acres just to kind of make up for that shortfall in the Black Sea. And we had Indonesia that restricted palm oil exports for a period of time. We had other countries around the globe limit their exports as well. In fact, we ended up in a period where countries were limiting their exports more during the Russia-Ukraine conflict than what we saw during COVID. So a big step back in trade, which negatively impacts those countries that can't produce food. And we started hearing all sorts of concern about global hunger and outbreak, really conflicts emerging within countries as people were trying to get food. So big deal, really shocked the markets, really shocked the world in terms of our ability to fight back against global hunger and civility. So
one of the interesting things about the invasion, you talked about that risk premium that was priced in the market before the invasion, and oftentimes, when we see these risks priced into the market already, there's not a lot of adjustments whenever things actually happen. But this was such a huge event, and such a large market dictator that it's that was kind of just putting your finger in a crack of a dam. It didn't really do anything. There's still massive swings, and and it's to the point where we're nearly a year away from the initial invasion, and we're still seeing obviously this dictate a lot of the market, a lot of the direction. So I guess now the question is how long will that be the case, and really who's to say, right? So it's anyone's guess.
Well, I think we're going to see reduction in production from that region for a long time. Some of that was offset this last year in the wheat market by just a mammoth Russian wheat crop. The likelihood is not strong that Russia is going to follow up with another major crop again this year. So I think as we look ahead, some strong reduction, just given all the factors that Ukrainian producers are facing. And I think we're in for some tightness out of that region that's going to really tighten up that feed grain market going ahead. So,
well, and all these topics we're going to be talking about today are pretty closely linked because the high gas prices, that was another huge storyline throughout the year. Its impacts within the ethanol market, negatively impacting maybe some ethanol sales and production. But then also, causing transportation to skyrocket as well, the costs there. So what kind of market tensions are lingering on from the year that we saw when it comes to gas prices and transportation costs?
Sure, and that's a big question because we could take that a lot of different ways. So one of the big things that initially broke out was, high cost of producing fertilizer and reductions in fertilizers. We'd already seen a ramp up in fertilizer, but when the conflict broke out, that tightened the global fertilizer picture even more, and energy, right? So it's fertilizer and then energy right at a time when U.S. producers were getting ready to hit the fields there in April and May to plant the 2022 crop. So, that impacted us. It continued to impact us through the summer. We saw high gas prices really curtail demand for gasoline, which then, decreases ethanol consumption, just given the way the program, the renewable fuel standards operates. We did see gasoline consumption limit the ability of consuming domestic ethanol here. We did see some additional ethanol exports, a strong summer of ethanol exports, primarily to regions that had depended on the European market. And given that their challenges with natural gas, their lack of ability to produce opened up some additional opportunities for us. But really saw some strong energy prices across the board this summer that caused prices for all goods to go up. Just with the general nature of oil being a part of our transportation of goods and products. I'll throw in, it wasn't a gas situation, but in this logistics vein as well was, the river logistics that we had on the Mississippi, getting product out of the Gulf of Mexico right at the beginning of the marketing year. So you had high energy prices, in this case diesel fuel, that was limiting the ability to move product via trucks. We had water shortages limiting our ability to move product via the river system. So that pushed everything almost in the rail sector, which then is, as we've seen the last couple of months, really gave some extra bargaining power to those railroad unions to ask for better pay, better working conditions. And so all of this is mixed together and certainly had broad effects.
Well, and maybe something that's slowly getting better over time. I'm thankful that I'm generally not buying diesel. I just have a gas car. But I mean, over the last week on the farm, we spent several $100s in diesel just keeping certain things warm, but and running equipment. But you've seen gas prices maybe drop down, as in Ohio they were near $4 at one point just a couple months ago, and now it's below or right around just a little bit below that $3 mark. In Missouri, central Missouri today, I was seeing around 270 was a lot of the prices there. So maybe some positives going forward into the new year as they kind of come back to earth, and hopefully that continues. And then also another big market mover for the year, the Inflation Reduction Act. And this had a lot of implications for the renewable fuel sector. Really, how much impact do you think that it's going to have, maybe supporting these renewable fuels, supporting these biofuels and things like that, moving forward?
Well, it certainly, so when that got passed in August, it certainly had a, big, market moving factor for renewable fuels, and especially sustainable aviation fuel. It kind of put a market around that, or put the framework in place to develop a market a little bit for, sustainable aviation fuel. And when I say market, I'm not talking about, buyers and sellers going in. It allowed, credits based on energy consumption or energy score that energy intensity score there. I finally got it out. It allowed that to be rewarded for that product through government programs, kind of very similar to what we initially saw with the renewable fuel standard when it first came out, the first iterate. Well, it really wasn't the first iteration, but some of the early stages of that was based on this notion. It's what the biodiesel industry has, that biodiesel blenders credit for the last couple of years. So it opened up the possibility of seeing, ethanol being converted into sustainable aviation fuel and providing a more stable, forward-looking outlook for the ethanol market. And then it also for vegetable oils to be produced in a sustainable aviation fuel to power our aviation industry. So, that was the first thing that I think, in 2022 came out that provided a boost. I think, given the way the market reacted to when EPA released their renewable volume obligations for the year and kind of their rule for renewable fuels here at the end of the calendar year at the end of November, that was kind of the opposite effect. The market wasn't overly impressed with what was coming out there. And so we kind of saw some downward pressure on renewable energy markets and businesses that work in the renewable energy space. So a lot of energy, a lot of built up excitement from that Inflation Reduction Act in August. And then, some dampening of expectations come November and December.
Well, and it kind of seems like an ongoing fight between siblings, right? When you look at how the energy sector is working out, you have, oil and gas, which is like the older sibling that's always been, in charge, or, the head of the table, I guess. Then you have, the younger brothers and sisters between, you look at biofuels versus electric versus whatever else you want to talk about. And I think it's been interesting, the conversation, oftentimes it's, biofuel versus electric. How are you going to, see these two things shake out? And I think really, an all systems approach, as much as maybe farmers don't want to talk about electric having a place, it's not going away. Right. So, trying to see the best ways to fit each sector within the market is going to be key moving forward.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. It's always an ever evolving dynamic. I don't know how this is all going to shake out going forward, but I certainly think, we've got excitement right now in renewable diesel, sustainable aviation fuel that is bringing new stakeholders or new advocates, if you will, champions into the policy debate that frankly are providing a boost that I haven't seen in years. I'm not saying that the soybean associations and the corn associations of the world haven't been out there promoting, their biofuel products. They have, and they absolutely have. They've been working on behalf of the farmers, but their coalition hasn't been broad enough to really move the needle. Now, all of a sudden, you've got some of these other things that are bringing additional people in to that tent, that political tent, if you will. And I'm not sure it's going to be enough yet, but we're certainly building a coalition to where you could see, some additional support down the road for biofuels, liquid biofuels, in some type of legislation someday. So I think that's my gentle way of saying that everything that's been happening over the last couple of years has certainly helped biofuels, but we were just always running, and I say we, like as an industry
collective.
Yeah, as a collective, we were just never getting that broad coalition across the board to be able to go in like what the renewable fuel standard did in 2007, 2005, and 2007 to really make substantial changes. And I think that's what renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel have done as of late, is they're broadening the people that have interest in these products and bringing more people to the table.
So I think that's provided a decent snapshot, at least, kind of a glance into 2022. Obviously, there's a lot more we could talk about, but if we talk about everything that actually had impact, we'd never we'd never get done before the end of 2023. So looking ahead, looking into the new calendar year, what do farmers really need to be paying attention to as they flip those calendars over?
Yeah, so mostly a pretty quiet week as we look ahead to, the markets will be closed again for New Year's Day and, a day off for New Year's. And so a really quiet week. Everything's delayed a day given the holiday on Monday. And then we'll go at it again next week.
All right, Ben, it's always a pleasure having you on and getting to pick your brain on these topics. If you'd like to check out, viewers, listeners, like to check out our sister program with a weekly livestock market update, you can do so at brownfieldagnews.com. Also, check us out there as well if you want to learn more about what we do. As always, I'm Will Robinson on Brownfield.